What's up, everybody? This is the Console Crusade podcast. Here we talk retro games, gaming news, and sometimes Forrest Whitaker's lazy eye. Joining me today to talk some video game developer origin stories is my man Nick Durheim. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. We've learned a lot today, and the prior days in which we were learning.
You may have learned a lot. I took some notes that I'm sure I'll stumble through. Nothing really of interest, but we're going to pretend it is.
I hope you're going to tell me something about Humongous.
I think I want to save that. I want to do an episode where we talk strictly about deep childhood cuts, right?
Yeah, we need to do a lore dive on Pajama Sam.
I mean,
I want to know what's going on in that treehouse.
The Freddy Fish conspiracy, okay? It's real. All right, so we've both gone through and compiled a list of developers that, just some fun facts, some interesting trivia, some goofy origins, or just interesting origins. I want you to kick us off here and learn my brain a little bit.
All right, so I was just trying to go through and see if I could find anything interesting on Bethesda. I mean, we all know them for the Elder Scrolls games, and then they picked up Fallout after 1 and 2. They did 3 and 4.
Who did New Vegas? It wasn't Bethesda.
It was Obsidian.
They did KOTOR too.
So Bethesda was started in 1986, and originally they wanted to just be called Softworks, but that name was already taken, so they just named it after the town that they were started in, which is Bethesda. So they're Bethesda Softworks.
Bethesda where? Where is that?
It's like Massachusetts, I think. I didn't write it down because I'm bad. But it started by a fellow named Christopher Weaver, and I thought it was very interesting that they have only developed 2 games ever on a Nintendo platform, and those were the excellent titles of Home Alone and Where's Waldo.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so they just got started, doing, not that, that's Home Improvement.
Oh, sorry, Home Alone. My bad.
No, Macaulay Culkin, Home Alone.
Sorry.
And his murder house.
Everybody's favorite crackhead, Macaulay Culkin.
And Where's Waldo, that funny hipster hiding at the beach.
Scary man.
Yeah, those were back in 1991.
Home Improvement.
Oh. There was a Home Improvement game, though, on Super Nintendo, and I really want to play that game.
Oh, my God.
It's very entertaining.
Console Crusade review inbound.
Also thought it was pretty cool. They were hired by EA to make the first Madden game because they had developed a game on the NES called Gridiron, and I guess EA thought that was cool, and they wanted to use their franchise connections and make an NFL game, a football game.
Is this before the yearly installment of whatever NFL game? This is kind of... What year was that?
Oh, man, I didn't write that down. I think it was on the Super Nintendo.
Okay, all right. So early 90s.
So early 90s, 93 maybe.
Okay.
But then they ended up suing EA for $3.3 million because they basically prevented Bethesda from working on the Gridiron game more, developing it and pushing it out because they wanted to have that market cornered. Classic Electronic Arts, am I right?
Oh, God, EA, my favorite video game publisher.
And then Christopher Weaver, the guy who founded it, him and Robert Altman formed ZeniMax Media, which is now the owner of Bethesda, but they also own Arcane, who does Dishonored and Prey, Battlecry, which does Battlecry, which I'm not really familiar with, but they also own id Software, which you might know from Doom, Quake, and Rage, and Machine Games, which did Wolfenstein. Tango Gameworks did The Evil Within, and ZeniMax Online Studios, which you've told me does Elder Scrolls Online.
The studio, yeah, but ZeniMax is some giant conglomerate that owns all sorts of various, business entities.
Yeah, I was actually looking into that more, and there's some investor group that owns 28% of that company, but they also invest in a bunch of mass media corporations across the globe. They have a very interesting board of directors. I was telling you a little bit about that, but ZeniMax's current board of directors has Cal Ripken Jr.
Oh my God.
That baseball player.
He's relevant still.
Robert Trump, who's the brother to Donald Trump.
Oh, wait. I thought it was one of his kids. I don't know their names.
No, it's Robert. It's an old man. Old man.
Donald's got a brother.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he's got more than one. Robert Altman, who formed ZeniMax with Chris Weaver, he's married to Linda Carter, who was Wonder Woman.
Way back. Okay. A bunch of old people own this shit. Cal Ripken is the hip one of the bunch.
He's venerable still, though. Harry Sloan is also on the board of directors. He was appointed by Ronald Reagan to the President's Advisory Council on Trade and Policy Negotiations. And he was also the financial chair for Mitt Romney, 2012.
These are the guys who own ZeniMax, the conglomerate that owns... They aren't video game specific, right? They have their hands in all sorts of cookie jars.
Well, ZeniMax is video game stuff, yeah.
Specifically...
Yeah, they own all these studios. That's like their thing. That's their main moneymaker.
Wow.
But they also have like... All these people are also involved with other things like Leslie Moonves. I don't know how you pronounce that. Moonves. He was the CEO at Viacom until it became CBS. And now, as of recently, he's the chairman there.
Okay.
So, like, they've got their fingers in other things, too.
So, I'm on the website for ZeniMax Media Incorporated. And it says, ZeniMax creates and publishes original interactive entertainment content for PC, Mac, previous and next-gen consoles, and mobile devices. So, that's so bizarre to me. I guess these guys who own it, they have nothing to do with video games. They have everything to do with money. And so they're, it's just weird to hear those names,
Yeah, actually, Christopher Weaver, the guy who started Bethesda, I guess he wasn't too happy about the way ZeniMax kind of came to be, even though he self-started it. And he filed a lawsuit in 2002 against ZeniMax. But I guess it didn't work out because he was snooping through employee emails to try and find evidence for it.
The old MySpace message trick. That's real shady. You can't be getting into someone else's messages, man.
Yeah, man. Gotta stop phishing people.
Anyway, what do I have next?
Did you do any of the bigger studios?
So I did Telltale and Atlas.
I guess you could almost classify those as AAA. Almost.
I mean, Telltale's definitely getting there, budget-wise.
I wouldn't be able to tell by playing their games that there's actually budget behind them, though.
No, they're total train wrecks. So I have Telltale and Atlas that I kind of went a little deeper on, and by a little...
I'd say Atlas is closer to AAA, at least in Japan space.
Oh, God, yeah. They are like the preeminent JRPG developer, the top of the pile, so to speak.
They're still behind Square.
Atlas puts out like several games a year, I feel like. There's always a new Atlas game, and it's always doing well. It always reviews well. Like, Square...
Just because you make more games doesn't mean they're bigger, though.
That's true. I mean, if we're talking financially, I guess Square's is the top there. But Telltale Games, a couple of interesting things here. Telltale started off, there were a couple of Joe Blows. Not that they'll ever listen to this. Sorry, guys. But they started off, they all worked for LucasArts. There was two guys, I believe. And they were developing a sequel for the game, Sam & Max Hit the Road. The fact that they were developing... I guess it was only 11 years later. 2004, 2003, 2004.
Only 11 years later?
Now it's like, you look back, it's like, oh God, that game was 25 years old. But then, at least, it was like, it's only a decade old, right?
That's still, like, really not relevant. If a sequel doesn't come out within, like, 2 years, then that's trouble.
Well, I imagine that's why it got shit canned, right? Like, they're like, no one cares about this, and we're spending too much time and money, and our resources should go elsewhere, even though it's LucasArts, right? And so the project got scrapped, and so the two fellas split off from the company and formed Telltale. They had a couple of really goofy things kind of in the beginning of their career there with this company. I know they did, like, I think they got the rights to, like, Wallace and Gromit. You remember that? That was like a claymation sort of movie, right?
Yeah, it's a series. That's there's a bunch of movies. They do, like, short movies. They had a bigger one. I can't remember who they worked with. They worked with, like, Warner or something. Like, they kind of hit the big time. They'd Flushed Away.
That sounds right.
That's Aardman Studios. That's right. I was trying to think of the name.
Oh, God, man. Deep cuts here. So they got the rights to that, but before that, they wanted to, like, continue working on this game they had been developing for the Sam & Max sequel. They went to the creator after LucasArts denied, they refused to give them the rights for the game. So they went to the creator of Sam & Max and asked him personally for the rights to develop future games using his character's likenesses. And he agreed, so they did a Sam & Max game. So let me preface this by saying, if you're listening to this and you don't know Telltale, what's wrong with you? No, but really, they've done the Walking Dead games, which have done really well. I know they did the Back to the Future. The game was like, it was so-so. It was okay. It's definitely not one of the better Telltale experiences, but it's a big name franchise, right? Like, Back to the Future is huge.
Right. They do a lot of, like, all their games are pretty much based off of franchises.
Right. I mean, they've got the rights to Jurassic Park. They've got the rights to... They're doing Batman right now. Obviously, like I said, Walking Dead. What am I missing? There's another big one that I'm missing. I mean, they did The Wolf Among Us, right?
Yeah, which that was based on a book, apparently. I didn't know that was based on a book.
I think it was a comic books, I want to say.
Which the comic was based on, like, old Brothers Grimm fairy tale type stuff.
Right. I want to say there's another franchise, a big franchise I'm missing.
They did the Borderlands.
Yeah, they did the Tales from the Borderlands.
They did Minecraft Stories or something.
Minecraft Story Mode, really?
Yeah, they did Minecraft Story Mode.
I've never played Minecraft a day in my life, so I don't know anything about that. But anyway, now they're doing Guardians next. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, okay, right. Huge franchises, super relevant today as far as pop culture goes and entertainment. So one of their first quote-unquote big games got released on the Wii, eventually got a port to PC, was Strong Bad's cool game for attractive people.
Strong Bad.
If you don't know who Strong Bad is...
Some early internet lore right there.
I don't blame you. Homestarrunner.net. It's .com. Oh, dude, we spent so many hours of our lives on homestarrunner.com watching these weird Flash shorts. I don't know the name of the guy. I wish I did because he's really great. I think it's two guys.
Oh, the Chapman brothers, yeah.
Just a weird internet series. They did, just weird Flash videos before. It was back in like the Newgrounds era, right?
Right.
You'd only really be familiar with them if you had a really, really weird childhood. But Homestar Runner, Strong Bad. I guess they developed a game, classic Telltale, right? Where it was a 5 episodes, kind of a point-and-click adventure game, which is why it came to the Wii, I assume.
Didn't it also come out on DS?
I cannot confirm nor deny that. I don't think it did. There may be another game. I feel like it just came out to Wii and later to PC.
I'm just thinking. I just figured. I thought I heard about a Homestar Runner game on the DS.
It actually came out on PlayStation 3 as well.
Oh, neat.
Oh my gosh. Probably only digitally. I know it got a physical PC DVD release. That'd be like a really cool thing to own.
It's the big time right there. Yeah, the complete in box. Strong Bad's cool game for attractive people.
Can you imagine for the guys who created this weird website where they did well, they were popular, they're still making content, but I can't imagine that that's like their career as Homestar Runner. How cool would it have been? What is this, 2008 the game released? And they're like, our own video game is being released on a Nintendo console.
Yeah, it's really, especially one that sold 100 million units, like a big Nintendo console.
Right. I don't know how well this game sold. I'd be curious to see, though. But it's just interesting to me that Telltale has the rights to all these massive franchises, and it's like they were developing video games for HomestarRunner.com. So I've never played the game myself. I plan on it. It's in my Steam wish list. As soon as that thing goes on sale, I'm snagging it up. It's reviewed really well. Not that I know you don't give a shit about reviews.
I mean, it's fair to give to use as a gauge, but I like to not look too deeply into them because I know it sways my own opinion and stuff.
Right. And I have a huge problem with that where my expectations, I temper them based on reviews, and sometimes that's really bad because if it doesn't live up to what everyone's saying, it's just an automatic disappointment for me, usually.
Yeah, it doesn't help that you're a huge pessimist also.
Yeah, I go into everything thinking it's going to be terrible. But anyway, Telltale. Really bizarre little bit of trivia there.
Yeah, they occupy a very interesting space in the game environment right now where there used to be so many developers that, Majesco, THQ, those kind of things. They're making these weird shovelware type titles, and Telltale games are almost like that, but also well received. You don't see that kind of developer anymore, so good for them. About HAL Laboratory.
Good old HAL Laboratories, co-founded by Satoru Iwata, the late great.
I wanted to look more into what's up with their logo, because I don't know if you can think of their logo off the top of their head, but it's like this weird wiener dog.
Yeah.
Laying in a nest with some eggs. But I couldn't find a single thing about that, which is, it's just really bizarre to me.
Really, there's nothing out there. No one's ever asked the question, what the hell is up with this logo?
I guess not. Nothing I could find. But HAL, as you may know, are the guys behind Kirby, the Earthbound games, Mother in Japan, and Smash Bros. And also a series Lolo. There are some NES games and Famicom, I believe.
Okay.
If you see the character, you would recognize it, but it's this weird little cute ball.
Lolo.
I've never played any of Lolo. I've never actually played any of those games, but it's something that people may recognize them for. They were started in 1980 by a group of friends, including Satoru Iwata. They were living in the Akihabara district in Japan, Tokyo, renting out an apartment, just hanging out. They're all big video game fans, but they just want to develop for Nintendo. So when Nintendo was coming out with the Famicom, they're like, we need to hop on this. We need to start at the beginning with them because this is going to be big. And before they were allowed to develop any games for them on their own, Nintendo was like, hey, you got to fix this game for us. Sort of prove your salt, you know? And they were contracted to fix Pinball.
Classic Pinball.
I think that was the first year that it came out, actually. But they're also responsible for several other ports like Joust, which I know you know.
Yo, Joust is my game.
I know you know.
The NES port was great.
Yeah, and they also ported SimCity for the Super Nintendo and the N64.
SimCity came to N64?
Yeah, man.
God damn.
I think it might have been just in Japan, but the SimCity on Super Nintendo was actually published by Nintendo, which is why there's so many specific things to that game on the Nintendo port. Like, instead of Godzilla tearing up your city as one of the disasters, you get a Bowser tearing around your city.
I did not know that.
And if you get like a certain number of citizens, like I think 10,000 people, you get a golden like Mario statue.
That's so cool. That game would like hold up today if not for the really, really bad load times. But that game still it does some really interesting things, and the fact that they brought it to a console and made it work, that's so great.
There's so many like very, very PC specific games that ended up getting ported to the consoles back then, just because consoles were actually more popular than computers at the time because of price.
So real quick, just as an aside here, I just found the answer to your logo question.
Right. What's up with that dog? Tell me about that dog, please.
All right. So obviously this is deep from the internet, so who knows if we can trust it.
Several grains of salt.
But this guy, he cited Nintendo, an interview from a 2003 issue of Nintendo Power about Kirby Air Ride, where producer Masayoshi Tanimura said that the dog is a fictional creation and that the team does not think of the dog as a dachshund. And he goes on to explain that the logo represents deep thought into quote-unquote incubating completely new ideas that will eventually hatch into incredibly fun games.
Dang.
So thus, that weird wiener dog sitting on the eggs there.
That was very cerebral.
I know. I mean, weird. I almost feel like that thing should have antlers on it. I'm looking at that logo right now. I feel like it looks less like a wiener dog and more like a deer without antlers, which would be a female deer. It's a deer.
A deer. A female deer.
God. Totally.
A deer, a doe.
Kind of a little bit.
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of interesting that HAL, the company, was named after 2001: A Space Odyssey, the robot.
The robot. Yeah, Hal. Creepy Hal, man.
And also, Iwata, in an Iwata Asks, said that they called it HAL because it was one step ahead of IBM. H is before I, A is before B. I thought that was... Iwata, you clever motherfucker.
It just,
God damn it.
A little goofy. A little haha got you.
They were pivotal in helping Earthbound actually finish development, because that was another case of development hell where they just pushed it off and waited, couldn't get it out. And then after Mother 3 came out on GBA.
After what, 10 years of on and off development? Yeah,
they helped, well, actually no, I think it was after Earthbound, Ape sort of turned into Creatures. Ape Inc., which was Shigesato Itoi's company that made Mother and Mother 2, turned into Creatures, which, as you know, worked on Pokemon.
Right.
And developed a bunch of Pokemon games. HAL was also responsible for the Pokemon Snap and the Pokemon Stadium games. And they also developed Pokemon Emerald on Game Boy Advance.
Oh, the best of the third generation games. So Satoru Iwata, how long was his involvement with the company? Because at some point he left and quit developing games.
I think he was still involved with HAL to like a certain extent, maybe as a, I don't know, oversight.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much involvement he had.
Peripherally involved. I mean, that makes sense.
Right. And he became president of Nintendo, I want to say 2004.
2000. Yeah, sounds about right. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, I know his involvement in HAL was kind of minimal for a while there because he was just so busy, like, as a director, and he helped with Kirby's Air Ride and hopped back in for Melee and helped with that too.
Man, I don't want this to just turn into the Satoru Iwata half-hour special, but
It's hard not to, man.
that guy was... You texted me earlier, and you said something... You were reading his GDC speech from '05?
Yeah, 2005. He was just talking about his inspiration for creating video games and his experiences in school and growing up and being a game developer. Like, in his head, he was a game developer, but his business card is president, but in his heart, he's just a gamer. And I was like, God damn, this dude is just such a homie.
He did so many great things, especially that directly impacted our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the story that he came on, and the developers of Pokemon Gold and Silver, you know, they couldn't get the game to work on a Game Boy Color cartridge, and he came in and reprogrammed the whole game at the final hour, essentially, to get that game to work.
Yeah, pretty much like double the size of the game because they couldn't get Kanto to fit. But he was just like, oh, I'll do it.
I'll do it.
And pretty much the same thing happened with Earthbound.
He just, great man. Great man.
Hal was also responsible for the e-reader accessory for the Game Boy Advance. It was their only hardware.
So you're saying they weren't all hits?
Well, I mean, that thing was cool, right? You got to scan cool cards.
Fucking useless.
I actually don't know what the success was for that thing. It was kind of late in the Game Boy's life cycle, so that could also have a impact on it.
I imagine that's one of the things that took off in Japan, but for us, it was like, what is this useless pile of trash kind of thing?
Yeah, I feel like trading cards in general had kind of fallen off by that point.
Yeah.
That was, mid-2000s? Yeah, it was kind of hit a fever pitch in the late 90s, so it was a little too late. Also from HAL Laboratory was Masahiro Sakurai, which you know as the creator of the Smash Bros. Games. And he, at the age of 19, made his first game, which was Kirby's Dream Land, which is the first Kirby game on the Game Boy.
Jesus.
I thought that was kind of interesting. Also, HAL has a really cool website. If you go there, you can play with it. There's a bunch of like stuff, just interaction.
Really?
I don't know. It was just kind of funny. It's a funky little website.
Some of these Japanese companies, they just do some of the quirkiest things. Well, that's all well and interesting, but I got something for you.
Hit me.
Okay, so CD Projekt Red. Back in the day, I have to bring up my damn notes now because they're names and things that I have to try and pronounce.
Oh, dude, don't even try. I mean, you're going to butcher that Polish like only you could.
Oh, dude, I'm going to try, goddammit.
Oh, no.
I wrote this stuff down and I had the damn wiki up so that I could try and... Okay, so CD Projekt Red was founded in 94 by Marcin Iwiński and Mikhail Gachiński.
Go on.
I think that's what they said. So back in the day, check it out. Copyright law did not exist in Poland. There was no such thing as Polish copyright law. So in high school, Marcin Iwiński, I hope I'm not butchering that.
Oh, you definitely are.
Iwiński. Okay. Sorry, bro. He sold cracked copies of Western video games in a Warsaw marketplace. He just burned games and go out and sell them at the damn flea market. Or, you know, whatever the equivalent was in Poland at the time.
With his parrot on his shoulder and his eye patch.
In high school, he met the other guy. They became business partners. He was also selling video games illegally. So check it out. They wanted to conduct business legitimately, according to the wiki here. So Iwiński and Kaczynski began importing games from U.S. retailers, and they were the very first importers and resellers of CD-ROM games in Poland.
Jeez.
Wait, that's crazy.
Just started that market.
That's insane to me. They are the ones that brought CD-ROMs to Poland, dude.
They just imported that. That's really cool, actually.
So the other night, you and I were Skyping and kind of talking about what we want to do with this episode. Just kind of, let's find something interesting about some of these developers and talk some shit.
Let's see how often we can say the word interesting without thinking about it too much.
Yeah, interesting. I am a robot. Anyway, so Atlas Studios. We know them from Persona, a game that neither of us have played. At least not extensively. I started it on my Vita when I bought it.
I mean, I haven't had a PlayStation console since my PSP. So,
you haven't had a PlayStation console since I bricked your PSP after I updated it.
Well, I mean, it wasn't bricked. I just had it hacked, but then you had to update it so you could play some bad game probably.
I don't remember. I remember you being really mad at me, but I don't remember what the heck I was doing. I just remember it saying, you need to update.
Was there even a Persona game on the PSP? I know that Golden came on Vita, but...
I mean, because Persona 4, how old is that fucking game? Came out on PS2 and was that 08?
Oh god, it came out on the PS2? I thought that was a PS3 game. Oh my god. Those JRPGs have really long development cycles, though, so... And the PS2 was still huge.
But they were founded in 1986. And when we were Skyping the other night, like I was saying, I lost my shit when I read this. I read it wrong, it turns out.
Oh my god.
But they were founded in 1986, where they began selling amusement equipment, quote unquote.
Right.
I swear to God that said amusement park equipment. Like my brain just filled into place. And I was like, amusement park equipment. Like these guys are selling like
really big teacups.
Like what the hell were they selling? And how the hell do you go from selling like corn dog stands and roller coaster tracks to like developing JRPGs? Like what the fuck?
That seems like a pretty logical step, actually. If you really think about it, you go from a Ferris wheel to like, a skill tree. It's a very easy jump.
And please note his sarcasm if you're listening right now. I know you are all robots and you don't understand, nuanced human conversation.
Yeah, and open your notebook and actually write it down.
So a year later, they moved on from amusement equipment. I couldn't find any information as to what amusement equipment was.
Yeah, what is that? Is that dirty? Is that Japan being dirty?
I don't want to, I think it's implied maybe, but I don't want to, infer too far here, because when you read the word amusement equipment, the phrase rather, what would you think? Because I don't have a fucking clue.
I mean, the only thing I can think of are like weird little kitschy toys like paddle ball, ball and cup. Ball and cup.
Yeah, I don't know. But a year later, they developed their own karaoke console and began selling that. So that's kind of interesting. They go from amusement equipment. I imagine it has to probably be, were they selling arcade equipment?
Maybe. Or like, I know karaoke's been really big in Japan for a long time, so they might have been doing karaoke stuff before they did an at-home karaoke thing.
Right. Okay. I went to Atlas's Japanese website, translated it, and was reading through their own history. They have their own timeline of their company. And so there wasn't a lot of detail. And obviously the Wikipedia, I think, just took that.
So it was dirty stuff then. They just don't want to go into it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Confirmed.
So they released their first title under the Atlas name. I want to say it was 1990. I'm going to have to double check real quick because I don't want to be wrong and sound like an idiot. Not that anyone gives a shit.
You sound like an idiot anyway, even when you're right.
That's true. So their first game was called Puzzle Boy and was released in Japan in 1989. Puzzle Boy is really weird. It's a simple game, but it's frustratingly difficult. It's kind of this environmental puzzle game where it's top down. You're in this world, trying to get out of rooms essentially by moving platforms and walls around or whatever.
There were a lot of puzzle games that were, top down grid based
because they were really easy to create, first of all, but they were really great for pick up and go. Because the Game Boy wasn't marketed as a child's device. It was marketed to businessmen with briefcases and cell phones back in 1980 whatever.
I mean, to be fair, if you were a child with a briefcase, you probably had a Game Boy also. You were ahead of the curve. If
you were a child with a briefcase, you had more important things to worry about, I think.
I mean, is a lunchbox not a briefcase, if you think about it?
How very philosophical of you. Asking the hard questions here on the Console Crusade podcast.
Where do you draw the line?
Oh, God.
How big does it have to be?
Does it have to do with the size? What about the treatment on the outside? What's it made of?
Does it have to have storage for your documents?
Wait, what do you keep in there? Because you could make a briefcase a lunchbox just based on the contents within, right?
Right, and you can make a briefcase with like a cool Power Rangers logo on the side, and that's just a really like thin but also large lunchbox.
For all my crackers.
For all my crackers and Lunchables.
I eat a lot of those things.
Trade fodder, that's what that is. You're trying to get that brownie from that weird kid,
Oh my God, dude. We're going off the deep end here, everybody.
Atlas, makers of briefcases.
God. Anyway, Puzzle Boy, dude. I want you to look up the art. So the Puzzle Boy came out a year later, I believe, in the US, and it was called Quirk.
Oh my God. I own that game.
You own Quirk? Is that the one that was broken when it came?
Yeah.
No way.
Quirk's part of a trilogy.
Really?
Yeah, and the latter two games, I don't know if they had a English release or if it was a really, really limited English release, but those games are like $100 to $200 on Game Boy because of how rare they are. It's like Adventures of Spud or whatever. Like They're both potato based.
Well, here's the thing. I was going to say the original game, it looks like there's a weird potato man. There was like a potato and a ball of garlic or something. Yeah, Quirk is a tomato with a green mohawk.
Dude, he's got a sick mohawk, by the way.
Like, what the fuck is that?
And he's just pointing his finger up.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's trying to find his girlfriend. Dude, yeah, I own that game.
So that is the one that came broken, that UPS destroyed?
Yes.
Damn. So you should check it out, though. I was watching gameplay in lead up to this episode, and it looked really... It was simple, looks frustrating, looks really awesome. And it's got that, old school Game Boy aesthetic, obviously. It just takes me back.
Yeah, and I think I've actually played this game as a TI-86 port.
Fuck you. No, you haven't.
Yes, dude, I swear to God I have.
No, you fucking haven't.
There was one kid in high school. I wasn't friends with him. He was just that weird kid in math class, but he had a USB to TI-86 port, and he could download games, and he would hey dude, borrow my calculator, and he'll give you games. And he had this, I think, it looked just like this, and there was also a platforming box game.
Dude, that is so bizarre, man. Didn't the TI-86 get a Doom port at what point?
Probably. Name me one thing you can't play Doom on.
Well, that's true. That's really great.
We're being backstage during a play, playing Doom on my old iPod.
Like Apple branded iPod, not your Zune.
No, iPod, iPod Mini, the Nano ones.
Oh, the Nano, yeah.
They're the best iPods. Played Doom on that thing.
That was a color screen, right? How did you do that?
Sick hacks, man.
Dude, that's ridiculous. Speaking of sick hacks, bro, what do you got next for me?
Oh, man, not really a whole lot. I just wanted to bring up Capcom really quick.
Cashcon.
Crapcom. It's kind of fallen on harder times lately, but they were started in 1983 as Capcom, but before that, they were called IRM Corporation, and that was started in 1979, and they've had the same president through the time. They were started by Kenji Tsujimoto. The name Capcom is a portmanteau of Capsule Computers because of their work in arcade machines. So I thought that was kind of a little interesting tidbit. Also, Tsujimoto in 1990 bought land in Napa Valley, and he has a winery. I just on the Capcom website, they're like, yeah, drink this wine.
Does it list a website? Does it link you to where you can buy his wine?
I didn't dig that deep. I was just like, this is really bizarre. But yeah, that was pretty much all I really looked into for Capcom. I just wanted to see when they started because of, they've got very recognizable IP. They did Street Fighter, Mega Man, Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, Ace Attorney, and Devil May Cry. You've probably played a Capcom game in your life.
So my next couple companies here, I don't really have much to say about them, just some interesting facts. Similar to Atlas, another company that I don't know much about, but I found when we were digging through, I thought it was really interesting, was Taito. Taito did a lot of stuff on the early, for the NES back in the day.
Yeah, what games are they responsible for? Did they do Bubble Bobble? Was that Taito?
Dude, they did Bubble Bobble. They did Space Invaders.
Okay.
They went on to do, I'm pretty sure they did Little Samson.
Yeah, I think that tracks.
Which is one of the most sought after NES games. It's pushing $600 now plus. They did all sorts of stuff though. They did a lot of stuff for arcades back in the day, from Astro Race to basketball.
That popular title.
Basketball. Clean Sweep, Barricade, Bombs Away. This is all in the 70s here. They're developing, but they started out
arcade cabinets.
They were founded in 1953 by a Russian Jewish businessman named Michael Kogan. They were founded as the Taito Trading Company. A couple of really weird things about them here was initially they started importing and distributing vending machines.
Okay.
Vending machines to video games. Okay, they both start with a V, right?
That's an easy jump. You think vending machines, and then you gamify that with a claw game, and then that's just a small leap to regular old computer-based arcade games.
Right. So they were the first company ever to distill and sell vodka in Japan.
Wow.
Taito, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah, when I thought, when you hear the name Taito, obviously you think, oh, that's a Japanese-sounding name, but it was started by some Russian dude, and then did the most Russian thing you could possibly do, just make vodka.
Yeah, right? So later on, they began leasing jukeboxes and eventually started to manufacture their own. And then they started making arcade games in the 60s, and obviously this is how we get to video games. But I thought that was interesting. First company to still and sell vodka in Japan. That seems, I mean, I don't know, was that in the 50s? I guess that makes sense. It just seems like so late.
Yeah, maybe like they had it like imported before then, but because that makes it sound like, distill and sell.
You think that there was vodka being sold in Japan prior to the
probably, yeah,
50 whatever? Okay, well, I took it the other way. You're probably right though, but I thought that was interesting.
That still is like a little fun fact there. Started by a Jewish Russian guy.
I want to give a shout out. I mean, this is obviously not a comprehensive list of weird video game developer origins. This was just a few we found interesting or whatever. But I want to give a shout out to Big Huge Games. So they've done Rise of Nations, probably all I can tell you. I don't, Rise of Nations. They did Age of Empires 3. So, let me get into this for you here. They did Catan in 07, I think.
There's a bunch of those like sim, like 4X games.
Brian Reynolds, who co-founded Firaxis, they've done all the Civilization games, right?
Mm-hmm.
XCOM. I think they've only done Civ and XCOM. So Brian Reynolds, he co-founded Firaxis. In 2000, he left because he wanted to bring the complexity of the turn-based strategy genre and add those elements into a real-time strategy game, which is like so fucking cool when you think about it. Like that kind of game didn't exist. So what he did was he left Firaxis and he founded Big Huge Games. And their first release, one of my favorite games ever, their first release in 2003 was Rise of Nations, which is basically a real-time strategy version of Civilization. And there are a lot of differences there. It's not a Civ clone by any means. But I always liked it more than Civ. And trust me, I've put plenty of time into Civ. But I always liked it more because there's some kind of give and take there with a game like Rise of Nations. I love the fast pace. It's a real-time strategy game. So you're always moving, right? Whereas in a Civ game, you pause the game, you figure out your turn, and by the end of the game, your turns are going to take you 2 hours because you have so many units and buildings and all these things, whatever.
Yeah, you're stuck in an analysis paralysis.
Yeah, exactly. Rise of Nations eliminated that problem. Obviously, it was more fast-paced. You couldn't just pause and do your turn and then go. It's a real-time strategy game. So I always loved that as a kid, and even now I've been kind of replaying that game. And so I just want to give a shout out to Big Huge Games. Brian Reynolds, you're the man. You created a new genre, dude.
Are they still around? Are they still doing stuff, or are they kind of like a one-hit wonder kind of thing?
So they did Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning in 2012. Yeah, they co-developed with 38 Studios, and they put out a game in 2015 called Dominations. It was a turn-based strategy, co-developed with Nexon, not Neoxin, Nexon. A studio who I don't know anything about.
Nexon, isn't that the Korean company?
Nexon America Games, nothing we've heard of. Atlantica Online, Vindictus.
Okay, so they're probably just doing little online games.
Yeah, they did. They have a Korean branch. Yeah, they did EVE Online. They did
EVE Online is a big thing.
Counter-Strike Online 2.
Okay, well that's that's fun. Good for him.
What do you got next for me, man?
Oh man, I'm running out. I put down Activision just because I wanted to do a little shout out to them. As you may know, they're very big now. They got merged with Blizzard after being bought by Vivendi, but then they rebought themselves back out.
They rebought themselves.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they bought their freedom.
we are our own men and women.
But they were started in 1979, and they were the first third-party publisher. Because before that, games were made by the people who were selling the games. So Atari made Atari games. And then Activision was like, yo, that's messed up. What if we want to make an Atari game? And they've been around since then. I just thought that was pretty commendable, despite them being an evil, huge, multi-million-dollar corporation now, or whatever you want to look at them as.
Big and evil and scary.
But they developed Pitfall, which was actually a pretty big series for the time.
Wait, the OG Pitfall?
Yeah, OG Pitfall.
Like on the Atari?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Activision.
Yes.
Okay. The more you know. Shout out to Pitfall. You know what I was playing? Not the first, but the second Pitfall on Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, that wasn't my adventure. That was something
As the one with the talking cat. It's a good one.
Oh yeah, that one.
What was his bit? He was like, "Hi, I'll be your talking cat for this adventure." And I'm like, "Oh, thank God!" I was worried. I got through 2 levels and there wasn't a talking cat.
All right, well, where's the talking cat? I'm not playing Pitfall till there's a cat that's speaking English.
Glad he made himself known to me before I threw my Game Boy through a window.
Got any more cool tidbits for me?
Just one more little tidbit here. Nothing.
Perfect.
I'm sure, we're missing, obviously Nintendo's 110 years old and they started making playing cards back when Japan didn't have flushing toilets and shit.
And had a taxi service and a love hotel. But that's an episode in and of itself, and it's also a book that you can probably just buy.
Probably. We don't need to get too elaborate. So there are a lot of things, like I said, this is not comprehensive. We just, we're just throwing some facts at each other.
It's as comprehensive as we are capable, which is not very.
Well, not that we're capable of. We're just lazy. We're lackadaisical, man.
Well, yeah, we skimmed the surface. Average person.
So my last one here, I put down Bandai Namco, which
Bando Namkai?
Namco Bandai
Banjo-Kazooie?
Beetleborgs. I don't know.
Band-Aid Namcor.
Namcor. Oh God. Oh, hamstring. We're gonna this pod's gonna devolve into us saying things in Coach Z's voice.
Tell me about Bandai and tell me about Namco and when did they came together.
Well, Bandai Namco was framed in 2005.
Framed?
Framed.
What?
Oh man. So Bandai Namco, they merged in 2005. But I don't care about the origin. Bandai Namco, they've done lots of Dragon Ball Z games and other
They've done a bunch. They're like the anime game company. They do Naruto, they do One Piece, they do Dragon Ball. I think they mainly publish them. There are probably some of the bigger ones that they actually step in and develop themselves. But I think they have the rights to all those. Isn't there a company that is just we're the ones that put out the big animes?
Oh God. A company that puts out the big animes? Or dubs them?
Sometimes both. I don't know.
There's Aniplex and there's...
well, they do the dub. I know they do dubs.
Funimation.
They also do dubs.
Viz Media?
Maybe. They just have... They produce,
Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, Toei.
Or
Toei Animation.
Toei,
Yeah.
I think Bandai Namco, I think they're homies to Toei. They have to be, just based on the amount of franchises they have.
What's interesting about them, though, is that in 2010 they set a Guinness World Record for being a company that released the most TV commercials for one product. Yeah, which is such a niche to get into.
We did it, guys. Yeah. Put us in your weird book, Guinness.
So they put out a game called Solo to Robo, which I believe translates to Robot and Sky or something. Mm-hmm. Solo to Robo Red the Hunter, which is a sequel to the PS1 RPG Tail Concerto. 2 games I've never heard of or played. No idea. Weird RPGs. But they created 100 different versions of the ad because the game consisted of 100 different chapters. We're going to do a commercial for every chapter of the game.
That seems like overkill.
And it's for a game no one's heard of.
Wait, you said Tails?
Tail Concerto was the PS1 RPG that Solo to Robo was a sequel to.
Is that part of the Tails series?
No. Tail, Tail.
Bandai Namco does the Tales of games too.
Really?
Yeah, they do. Tales of Symphonia was a really big one.
Right.
Tales of Fantasia. They had a recent one. Yeah, Zestria came out last year. So yeah, that's them.
They're basically all the same game and people love them.
Yeah, I think they've made, minor jumps, but that's kind of like any series that has been around for that many iterations. How many huge jumps can you really make before it's not the same game anymore?
Right. So anyway, I think that's our lists. Just some interesting facts that we wanted to kind of go over. More than anything, we just wanted to get back on here and bullshit a little bit, kind of...
Practice our rapport.
And we're trying to go weekly or bi-weekly.
We can do weekly. We can bullshit enough to produce enough content,
right.
Listenable at least.
We're still trying to get the hang of a format and just kind of we don't want this to be too terribly formal. We just want to get on here and have some good conversation and hopefully have that conversation with you if you're listening to this.
Yeah, tune in next week as we play every single Tales of game.
It's in 1 week.
Yeah, there's only been like 20 of them.
That's not terribly daunting. Fucking 80-hour RPG.
No, there hasn't been 20. There's been like 15.
All right, we're off the cuff here. I'm gonna look up Tales of games. We're gonna find out how fucking many of them.
Fantasia, Destiny, Eternia, Destiny 2, Symphonia, Rebirth, Legendia, The Abyss, Innocence, Vesperia, Hearts, Graces, Zillia, Zillia 2, Zestria, and Berseria, which is this last year. So that's 16.
Zillia, did you say Zillia 1 and 2?
Yeah, I got those.
Okay.
2011 to 2012, bro.
Graces?
We're both looking at the same Wikipedia page.
Oh my god, Radiant, was that Radiant Mythology? Oh my god.
Yeah, man. These are actually pretty interesting. I played Symphonia a little bit, and I recently bought it on Steam because I had got a HD. I got a remake for PS3, and I think they just ported that to PC.
Yeah, I believe so. That was one of the big RPGs on the GameCube, was Tales of Symphonia.
Yep, one of the very few, really.
I played that game for like, I remember coming home, I had just had 4 teeth removed.
Oy.
I was probably in 5th or 6th grade. I want to say 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddy, one of my best friends at the time, Jacob Fraley, let me borrow, I believe, Tales of Symphonia. And I remember being all looped up on whatever they gave me. I just come off the gas. I came home. I'm in pain, and whatever they doped me up on. I don't know. I don't remember much about it, but I remember playing it and like not understanding like I understood like the mechanics and what I'm doing here, but like I didn't get the point. And that was my first experience really with a JRPG.
Yeah, they kind of just drop you in that story. I've only played maybe not even like the first tutorial chapter. I didn't finish that battle that you get into, but just the way it introduces you, you're just like, oh, you're just this person and you're in this school, I guess. And there's something happening. Get your sword and run outside. It was real bizarre the way they kind of just drop you in immediately. And
as an 11-year-old, I had spent my whole life playing games where it was just all about the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care about characters. I didn't care about story or narrative. I just wanted to get, you get dropped. It's like Crash Bandicoot. What's the narrative there? Who fucking cares? You run backwards at some things. You jump over some other stuff. Like,
watch out for that rock.
Yeah, like, okay. Spyro the Dragon, what do? You run around and you headbutt things, and sometimes you throw fire at them. Fire! So that was my first experience with an RPG, other than like Pokemon.
Interesting combat, but I need to play it some more probably.
Yeah. One of those games that's on the list that we'll probably never get to. Our lists are huge.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this has been the Console Crusade podcast. Thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen.
See you next time.
Or will we? They'll hear us next time.
No, we'll see them. Hey, it's the Console Crusade podcast. Look out your window. We're there.